Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, we're diving right in today because we're taking on something literally millions of us struggle with, that agonizing, endless cycle of insomnia. You know the feeling, right? Staring up at the ceiling at 3 a.m., just aggressively begging your own brain to please shut off. Well, today we're going to dismantle that incredibly frustrating cycle once and for all, using some absolutely fantastic insights directly from a clinical psychologist. Now, I want to kick things off with a totally counterintuitive question. What if trying to sleep is the exact thing keeping you awake? I know, it sounds crazy, right? But the psychological reality is that naturally good sleepers, they literally never exert effort to fall asleep. They don't try. They just do it. And figuring out exactly why that is, well, that's absolutely crucial. It's the first real key to unlocking your own rest tonight.
So to help deprogram your brain, here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll look at the insomnia trap, then redefining the bedroom, followed by stop forcing sleep, maintain daytime habits, and finally, address the root cause. Let's get into it. Step 1 on our list, the insomnia phobia trap.
To give you some context, the clinical psychologist who provided the source material for us today actually battled severe insomnia themselves. We're talking about sleeping maybe one single night out of every 3 for months on end. They suffered from what's known as insomnia phobia. Basically, that's this intense anxiety and utter fear of simply not being able to sleep. Picture this. You've got a massive presentation tomorrow morning. The pressure's on, and suddenly your perfectly quiet bedroom transforms into this high-stakes pressure cooker. Your brain is screaming, "I must sleep right now, or tomorrow is completely ruined." And what happens? Boom. Your nervous system goes on full alert. You're tense, you're wide awake. The sheer terror of not sleeping literally becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. This whole dynamic perfectly illustrates why perfectionists actually suffer the most here. Look at the perfectionist approach. It's all about strict rules. I must be in bed by 10 p.m. I demand exactly 8 hours of sleep. You're practically calculating the exact second your eyes need to close. Contrast that with the natural approach, which is going to bed only when you're genuinely sleepy, just letting your body take the wheel. The perfectionist rigid rules actually fuel the insomnia because you're trying to micromanage an involuntary bodily function. Think about it. You can't force yourself to sneeze, right? And you definitely can't force yourself to sleep.
Moving right along to step 2, redefining the bedroom environment. This all comes down to classic psychological conditioning. In a healthy scenario, your brain associates your bedroom purely with rest, relaxation, and, being unconscious. But if you're dealing with insomnia, what's actually happening? You're lying there in the dark, tossing, turning, and panicking about the time. Every single hour you spend frustrated in that bed inadvertently programs your brain. It starts viewing your mattress not as a sanctuary for rest, but as a place of immense stress. Without even realizing it, you're training your brain to snap wide awake the second your head hits that pillar. So if you're not overwhelmingly sleepy, what should you do instead? Well, you need practical, low-stimulation tasks, and you need to do them outside the bedroom. Go read a difficult, dry, or honestly just a really boring book. Remember how easy it was to fall asleep in a boring college lecture? Harness that exact energy. You could flip through some paper catalogs or listen to relaxing audio frequencies. But absolutely no way, no how should you be looking at your smartphone. That blue light is a total sleep killer. And completely ban any work from your evening routine. Just hang out in the living room until your body naturally generates the sleep hormones you need to finally drop off.
Which brings us to phase 3. Stop forcing yourself to sleep.
Okay, now we have to tackle the absolute hardest part of the night. You've done everything right, you waited on the couch until you were sleepy, you crawled into bed. But suddenly, bam, your eyes dart open and you are wide awake again. Our source points out a really brilliant realization here. Counting 135 sheep isn't going to work if your brain is traumatized by the fear of not sleeping. Have you ever actually laid there counting sheep, you make it to 100, 135, and you're just getting angrier and more alert? For sure. Because forcing sleep with little mental tricks just doesn't work. It only cranks up your internal tension because you're still laser focused on the anxiety of trying to fall asleep. Instead, you need a complete paradigm shift. Change the goal entirely. Literally stop trying to sleep. Just lie there, think about some happy memories, and tap into a sense of gratitude. You want to adopt an attitude of total surrender. Just tell yourself, hey, it's totally okay if I don't sleep tonight. I'm just going to enjoy resting my physical body, keeping my eyes closed, and thinking about good things. And here's the crazy irony. The exact moment you truly stop caring whether or not you fall asleep, the pressure vanishes. And that is almost always exactly when you finally drift off.
All right, on to step 4, maintain daytime habits. Let's fast forward to the morning after a genuinely terrible night. You feel like an absolute zombie, right? And you basically have two choices. Option 1, calling in sick. You stay home, you nap all day. Sounds amazing, doesn't it? Well, actually, scratch that. It's the worst thing you can do. You've just completely ruined your biological rhythm, virtually guaranteeing another sleepless night. Option 2, going to work. Yes, dragging yourself into work and operating on what we call eco mode. Maybe you're only giving 50% capacity today, and that's fine. By forcing yourself to stay awake and stay active, you're building up a massive amount of natural, biological sleep pressure, and that pressure is exactly what you need to hit the reset button on your rhythm for the coming evening. Now, if you're terrified of going to work exhausted, consider this number: 14 days. Our source references this incredibly extreme study where an individual was intentionally kept awake for nearly 2 straight weeks. Obviously, it was grueling, and their cognitive functions totally plummeted. But here's the amazing part. They bounced back completely after just a couple nights of deep rest. To put that into perspective, the big takeaway here is that a few nights of lost sleep will absolutely not cause you permanent damage. Realizing that the real-world impact of insomnia is actually much less severe than your anxiety is telling you it is, that's a huge step in removing that terrifying pressure. And finally, step 5, address the root cause. So we need to zoom out a bit and look at the bigger systemic issues. Sleep medication might temporarily mask the effects of deep, continuous stress or brain hyperarousal. Now, let's be real. Pills absolutely have their place. They can give you some essential short-term relief, break a brutal cycle, and get you some desperately needed rest. But true permanent recovery? That requires doing some digging. You have to uncover exactly why your brain feels constantly threatened and hyper-aroused in the first place. Medication is a fantastic tool, but it's a tool, not a permanent cure for underlying stress. The clinical psychologist from our source material shared a really profound realization about their own struggle. They said, "During the pandemic, the terror of infecting my patients kept me awake. I had to understand this root fear." You see, their insomnia wasn't just some bad habit they picked up. It was driven by immense professional pressure and the literal life or death stakes of their environment. Whether it's through counseling, therapy, or just some deep, honest self-analysis, identifying that hidden psychological stressor is absolutely vital if you want a permanent cure. So let's bring the whole shebang together. Wait outside the bedroom, relax with a difficult book, enter the bed only when you're truly sleepy, power through the next day even if you're totally exhausted, and finally, address your underlying stress. But listen to me on this. I do not want you to view this as some rigid protocol you have to follow. Because remember, perfectionism is the literal enemy of sleep. Instead, try to see this as a holistic paradigm shift. It's a gentle way to deprogram your anxious brain.
So, here is my final question for you. Are you ready to stop trying so hard to sleep and finally let your mind rest? It is time to let go of the pressure, to completely ditch that performance anxiety and trust your body's amazing natural rhythms once again. I really hope this explainer leaves you feeling relieved, equipped, and incredibly curious to learn more about your own mental habits. You've got the tools now. Take back your nights by simply letting go. Thanks so much for joining me.